All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with David Feinman. David, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Kevin, thanks for having me here. I'm so glad to be here.
You bet. I'll tell you, we were talking before we hit the record button. I want to give a quick shout out to the folks at the podcast guests platform because without those guys and the work that they're doing and the impact they're making in this world, then you and I would probably wouldn't even have met. And I am extremely grateful for those guys, and I'm looking forward to this interview today. And so what I'd like to do is I want to just start off by turning it over to you so we can set a little bit of context. Let the listeners know a little bit about, who you are, who you serve, what you do, what inspires you most about the work you're doing and the impact you guys are making. And we'll just start there, David.
For sure. So I'm from Philadelphia, and grew up in the suburbs here, and I run a business with my business partner Zach. We've been friends since the age of 16, but we've been partners for the past 9 years in a company called Viral Ideas. And
Okay.
our mission is to make the video creation process simpler. We basically essentially built a back end factory for video editing. We both started it 9 years ago. From very, very humble beginnings. We started it with $100 each, and have grown it to a 35-person company that serves hundreds of clients. And we've grown substantially over the years and had wild ups and downs over the past 9 years.
Yeah.
And have kind of self-taught ourselves, and also been fortunate to have a lot of mentors along the way that have really helped us out.
Very cool. So what inspires you most about the work that you get to do in serving your clients and stuff, David?
I think for us, it's the creativity portion of it. I really love being able to be a part of another company's vision, and being able to serve them in a way that lets them visually bring something to life. So on our end, our whole thing is video editing. All day we're receiving video footage, and we're able to essentially impact people by taking that raw footage and turning it into something meaningful and special, that companies can use to grow.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context, I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. And so, David, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And David, I'm excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, well, I think you and I were talking a little bit before we
Yeah.
jumped on, and that relationships are one of the most important things. Like it's essentially everything. And I think there's probably, when this question came about, there's probably a laundry list of people that I could go through. But to start, I think the most impactful was someone that I got lucky with, which was my grandfather.
Okay.
And he's someone who, um, you know, he's someone who grew up in very humble beginnings and was able to make something of himself. He worked in the school districts, and he was an accountant as well. So he had like a little side business doing accounting. And when specifically in my business, when I first started the business, he was my number one cheerleader, and he was my number one backstop. We would talk almost every single day. He'd ask me how are things with business. We would talk about it. And even like back when we first started, we had like no money when we first started. He
Okay.
was one of the first ones to, he didn't necessarily invest in the business, but he would, occasionally be like, hey, put this in your pocket and give me a couple bucks so, I could go have, a good time. So he didn't necessarily fund the business, but he helped support me financially a little bit, as the business was getting started, which, without that, it would have been a lot more difficult to get things rolling. So I think that was big for me, but beyond the financial support, he was someone who was my best friend. So, we would go out for breakfast all the time. And, and he was a very intelligent business person as well. So you could talk to him about business stuff, and he had the best advice for it. And beyond that, he just cared very deeply about what we were doing, and and inspired me to really never quit on it. So I think for me, having that backstop, and even this day, even though he's not here, I still have his words in the back of my head. Whenever I'm working, or that work ethic instilled in me from him. He worked, he would work in the school during the day, and then he would go teach night school, and he would work, he would work 10, 12, 13-hour days every single day.
Yeah.
And then, even in retirement, up to the last couple of years of his life, he was running a small business on the side. So, he was someone that I saw that work ethic. So, in terms of impact, like from a young age, I had that example in my life
Yeah.
of someone
Yeah.
who worked hard, and someone who ended up, when I started my own thing, just unconditionally supported what I was doing.
Yeah. It's interesting. My father, my grandpa passed away when I was very young, so I didn't get to know him well. But my father was my dad in the 60s, he was a commercial fisherman in Alaska and stuff. And I remember that he and a couple of his buddies built our home from the proceeds of one fishing trip to Alaska, and he paid cash for that home and built that home for
Wow.
us and stuff. And then later in life, so my dad passed away when I was just 16, but as a young boy, I remember my father telling me many times, Kevin, the harder you work, the more successful you'll be. And his that was his best advice. That was his experience, was the harder you work, the more successful you'll be. And right out of high school, I ended up joining the Army for 4 years, and then I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to stay in the Army. I wasn't going to be a career Army guy, and so I came back home to Seattle, and I was wanting to become an entrepreneur. And I thought, oh, it takes money to become an entrepreneur, so maybe I should figure out how to get money. And so I ended up getting my job on a fishing boat myself, and I went to Alaska. And I'll tell you, I worked in Alaska as a fisherman for 7 years until almost losing my life. In fact, that's what this scar on my chin was from, getting thrown across the boat by a wave. And
Yeah, it sounds like you could have been on that. What's that show? The deep sea,
Deadliest Catch. Yeah,
deadliest
yeah,
catch.
yeah. And there's a story there, and actually a bunch of those guys I fished with when I fished in Alaska and stuff. And they live
Wow.
locally here and stuff. And so, and some of them are still doing it to this day. I mean, I got out in 1995, so 95 to over. I mean, 19 years ago. There's some of those guys 19 years later, they're still doing that and stuff. And I'll tell you, there is something to be said for having a good work ethic. Although now, I'm a husband, I'm a father to 7 kids, I'm a grandfather to 6 grandkids, and I really enjoy having my time with family too and stuff. In fact, my whole business has been designed to support the lifestyle that I want to live. And I do. I'm okay with losing out on revenue if it means that it's going to infringe on my family life too and stuff. Because and just kind of, I do have a work ethic, and I will work my tail off at times, but there's a reason for it too. And I think we really can have both. We really can have both and stuff. But it's the life of an entrepreneur is one that man, you got to be dedicated for sure. And I mean, I hear you talking about your story as an entrepreneur and just starting with nothing, and having to figure it out. And how are we going to create cash? Because if you're starting with nothing, you got to create some cash flow pretty dang fast. Otherwise, you ain't going nowhere. So kudos.
Yeah, and to that point, like when we first started, right? Like we got an investment, or not investment, but we got a customer that paid up front for us, and that was our way of getting started. It wasn't going and pitching an investor, which we got later down the road, but it was hey, let's find a customer to invest in us to start out.
Yeah.
But it sounds like we have similar awesome examples with your dad coming home from a fishing trip and paying for the house with it.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. Well, so is there any, I mean, because I can dig in deeper here a little bit in relation to your grandfather, but I just want to make sure is that there wasn't anybody else that you wanted to at least honor too and stuff. Because if there was, I want to make sure I give you space and grace to do that too.
No, I mean, I would say like, you know, the person that ultimately invested in our company is someone who continues to this day to be a mentor and like a source of truth for us. And you
Okay.
know, he almost in a way like has given us advice from like a you know, like the rich dad perspective,
Sure.
you know, and we almost look to him like that, where he's able to, you know, he's able to look at our business even though he's not in the same industry as us. He's able
Mhm.
to look at our business from, you know, a 20,000 foot view and
Yeah.
say, hey, this is what you need to focus on. He almost always seems to understand exactly what's going on. Even if he's not in the day to day, even if we haven't spoken to him in
Mhm.
2 months, you could
Mhm.
show him a financial statement and he'll be like, hey guys, like, I know you're in the weeds, but look at this over here and like make sure you're doing this. And oh, the financial statements are telling me that you need to do this, this, and this. And like it's almost always 100% accurate. So I think having that mentor in our corner that
Yeah.
also has a vested interest in our business, you know, I know a lot of people are hesitant to take on investors. Maybe they really want to find it, but someone who really cares deeply about our success over everything else has been huge. And he's not even like an investor. He's a third partner to us, even though he doesn't operate day to day. You know, we always have that in the back of our head of, you know, what would our investor do? What would he do in this situation? You know,
Yeah.
and we ask ourselves, like me and my business partner ask ourselves that question, you know, and he's that, you know, he's almost that voice of reason, even though even if he's not in the room, like we, you know, I've been with him so many years, we know exactly what he would say. So I think having something like that in the business, even if it's, you know, a mentor or someone in the business that's able to be that source of calm truth for you, I think
Yeah.
that has been great for us.
Yeah. You know what? Because I have lots of friends who run businesses where they have had investors in their business. And as also there's been lots of different kinds of experiences. And some of them have been great, kind of like the one that you talked about, and others not so great. And you know, man, that is just really fortunate for both you guys and for your investor. That you know, what a beautiful relationship that you guys have, because he's not just an investor; he's an advisor too. You know,
Exactly.
and he sees himself in that role, that he is that advisor to you guys as well, and he does. You know, there's a synergy there between you. There's an alignment there. You know, and I know with you know I've got a friend of mine who is an investor and has been for many years. And now he's just gone off to do things on his own because he's like, you know, he's like, I don't want to just invest in companies. He's like, I want to invest and advise companies that I'm in complete alignment with, you know.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you were talking about right there. You know, is having that alignment, and man, everybody wins when you have that. Everybody wins when you have that, because you know what, I've heard of other people too taking investor money, and then the you know, and it might be a fund or it might be multiple investors or what have you. Well, and then if the investors want one thing and the founder of the company wants something completely different, now you're butting heads and stuff, you know, and now it becomes a
100%.
situation that is not at all like what you just described, you know. And so okay, so now that I want to, if you look back, so you guys are 9 years in since starting this company, is that correct? 9 years, okay.
Correct.
And if you look back over the last 9 years, and we can give an example to you know, that would involve your grandfather, or maybe it's the investor that you guys have had. But if you look over the last 9 years and look at one situation, I'm sure you come up with a lot of examples, but one situation where you personally got to make a really profound impact, and you also know, hands down, that would have never happened if not for the relationship that you've had with your grandfather, or the relationship that you've had with this investor that has invested in you guys. What is an example of something like that, David?
That's a great question. I mean, it, in terms of impact, uh, I don't think to any specific like one amazing moment, right? That
Okay.
has existed in the business. I just think of the day to day, right? And I think of, you know, we've created an environment that people like to come to work, right? We're a totally virtual company. Everyone, is based. We have people all over the world, and
Okay.
we've been able to give opportunity to people that normally wouldn't be able to have it. Like for example, like one of our employees just bought his first car, right? And I think stuff like that, you know, where you're able to create an environment that feels safe, where people can come to you and they can tell you anything. Like
Yeah.
our employees don't feel like you know, like they can't come to leadership and say, hey, I don't like the way this is being done, or hey, my life is really stressful right now. Can you guys help out? Because we don't look at it as we look at it from the perspective of, if everything's running smoothly, running the business should not be stressful. It should be, a nice day-to-day cadence. Obviously, there's going to be stressful days, but we've set things up in a way where, we really look down, all the way down, ladder in our company, and we say, hey, what lessons can we learn from the people that are, working in the business every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I definitely have learned that from both the way my grandfather's treated people, the way our investors treated people, and just seen that, our investor has employees that have been there 30 years that have retired with him,
Wow.
and so I just look at that longevity type of thinking of like, hey, I'm not gonna use someone to the point where they don't want to work for me next month. I want to make sure that someone can have a career with me if they so choose.
Yeah.
So I just think about that as an impact of like, hey, how often can people say, you know, we I come to work in an environment that, is safe, that feels good to me, that is, you know, generally pretty happy. People
Yeah.
respect each other, And by the way, it's all virtual, so no one has to leave their house. They can take care of their families if they need to take care of their families. So I think that is the impact that I'm most proud of, is how we operate day to day. And
Yeah.
by the way, if one of my employees heard this interview and they were like, I am not happy, I would encourage them to come to me and say, this is why I'm not happy. Let's have a conversation. So,
Yeah.
I think like, for us, it's just that open culture.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I mean, that speaks volumes to how you view relationships, how you personally view relationships, David. And I look in my business. I mean, I have relationships spanning back as far as 28 years, business relationships, and those relationships, I will tell you, they are more valuable today than ever. Because we continue to grow as individuals, as people, and we continue to get better at doing what we do through our businesses and making the impact that we make through our business in the world. And so those relationships do get far, far more valuable over time, And the same is, I mean, I have a friend of mine. He runs a company with 400 plus team members, and they do business nationwide, and they run big projects and stuff. And for me personally, the thought of running a company with a team that big, man, that I want no part of that. That is not my gig, man. But for him, man, he loves it, and he talks the same way about his people as you talk about your people. And there's when they have a leader that truly cares about them, that sees them, that values them, all of that, you're right. I mean, they will stick around because they feel seen, heard, and appreciated. And
Yeah.
like what you said, your investor has got employees that have been with him for 30 plus years, because that's how he makes them feel, and that's how you guys make them feel. And kudos to you. Kudos to you.
I think about it too, and I think about it from the perspective of the person with the 400 person company. But even for us, me and my co-founder, we're 6% of the staff. 94% of the rest of the staff, you know, they're doing, I'm just, a small part of it, right? At this point, when it was just me and my co-founder, it was 50-50. We did everything. But,
Yeah.
now as we've grown, we do, less and less of the work on the day to day. Now we still do a day's worth of work, or days plus. We both work very hard, but that's not to say that a whole group of we're not more important than the whole collective, the 94% of other people that exist inside my business. And it's very interesting to hear that, like, your friend with the 400-person company, he's even less of a percentage of his company, right? So
Totally.
I think it's all about the people around you at the end of the day.
You bet. Absolutely. It is. It's all about the people around us, the relationships in our lives, and everything that you've been talking about, David, is just such a testament to the power of relationships, because we're not in this alone, and when we have the help and the aid and support of other people, man, it makes all the difference in the world, all the difference in the world. Well, so for anybody listening to this right now, David, thinking like, man, Kevin, I really like David. I love what he stands for. I'd like to find out more about them and what they're doing. Do you have any website, any resources that they can check out and we can share with them?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is viralideamarketing.com. You can visit us
Okay.
there, reach out on there. Or you can reach out on any of the social media platforms. I'm unfortunately a little too active on all of them. So feel free to reach out on there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'll make sure we include that info with the show notes and stuff. Um, any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap, David?
No, I think that's it. So this was a great interview. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you, David. Really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. And I'm excited to get out and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs. So thanks so much.